You're listening to the Goldstein On Gelt Show with certified financial planner and best-selling author, Doug Goldstein.
Welcome to the Goldstein On Gelt Show. I'm Doug Goldstein. You know, there's a story about this old businessman who just had it. He was too much stress. He had too many worries. So he hired a new guy to be the CFO and run the company. The new guy comes in and the old man's explaining what he wants him to do. But he keeps saying to him, I need you to take over my worries. You have to worry about all this. I can't worry about this anymore. And there's all sorts of details they go over. And finally, the young man says to the old guy, he says, well, what's the salary? And the old man says, $500,000 a year. And the young guy says, yeah, but you only make $100,000 a year in the company. And the old man says, yes, that's your first worry. Managing a business is a real challenge. Let me tell you, I've been doing it now for 30 years. I think I'm pretty good at it. So I like to share some of the things that I've gone through. Normally on the Goldstein On Gelt Show, I like to talk to people about investments because my day job, I like to say, is that I'm an investment advisor. I work with people with their US portfolios, their brokerage accounts, their IRAs, and most of those people live outside the United States. But I figured I'd put together a few tips that make sense now for people who are setting up a business in Israel, or maybe even have been in business for a little while and are finding it's not going so well. So let's go through them. We'll call this the 5 tips for running a thriving business in Israel. And hopefully your business will thrive. The first thing you have to know is a critical Israeli word. You've probably heard it. The word in English, I'll tell you first, is nepotism. In Hebrew, we call it protexia. Protexia. Everyone needs to have protexia. Now, I'm not such a big fan of actually having protexia because I think that's a little bit corrupt, but it's similar, or it's, let's say, a close cousin to good networking. If you're going to succeed in business, you have to get out there and talk to people. You have to go to networking events. You can join groups like BNI, Business Network International. In fact, in the office park where I work, I started the Lulim networking group to bring business people together. If you're anywhere in the area of my office and you're a business person and you'd like to get involved, absolutely get in touch. By bringing business people together, talking about what they do, helping each other out, that's how you bring business. So it's not true protexia, but it is building a network, which is absolutely critical to having a good business structure. Now, once you have the network, you have to keep up with these people. It's not just meeting someone once, shaking hands, and exchanging business cards, or virtual business cards these days. Why? Because they're going to get thrown out. They're not going to look at it again. You need to have a system for following up with these people, whether it's sending an email, whether it's the occasional phone call, which quite frankly, I think is pretty nice, whether it's sending a WhatsApp, but not just a pre-programmed WhatsApp that you don't care about. If you want to show someone that you care about him, you have to make the effort. Building those networks means that you help everyone else. And if your whole attitude is to give, eventually you're going to get. But make sure your attitude is to give, and that's the way you'll succeed. So that's point number 1. What I started as protexia, but really what I mean as networking. The next thing is a very technical point, but is planning for your taxes. Now, if you set up a company, you will quickly discover that there are all sorts of company taxes you have to deal with. Not only just the income tax for the company, but you have to pay the taxes for your employees, let alone the pension plans. You've got to deal with VAT. You're I would say in every case, probably going to need an accountant or a bookkeeper to walk you through this. There's so many different complications. And if you make a mistake, Mas Hachnasa, which is the Israeli IRS, the Israeli tax department, they are very, very quick to notice when they haven't been paid. And I've seen people have a lien put on their house or on their car. It's just a nightmare, even when people didn't make mistakes. So let alone when you do make mistakes. And if Hebrew's not your first language and it's your second, or it's not even your language at all, you'll absolutely need to work with someone who's able to walk you through the system and get you set up straight. It used to be, I'm sorry to say, that in the old days, people weren't so careful about taxes. And 10, 20, 30 years ago, there was a bit of an attitude in Israel that, well, okay, I'll worry about it when I get there. That is no longer the case. Israel, like the United States, is a very, very sophisticated country with very sophisticated tax, or let's not say sophisticated, complicated tax rules. and they have all sorts of mechanisms to make sure that you're paying your taxes. We see this in my day job as an investment advisor when clients open up brokerage accounts with us because we handle their US portfolios. And they'll say things like, well, I don't have to pay taxes in Israel, right? This is my American money. So I always ask them, how long have you been in Israel? They say, oh, I've been here for 20, 30 years. And I tell them, Israel taxes you on your worldwide income. So your brokerage account in America or the bank account you have in London is subject to Israeli taxation. You need to be filing a tax return based on this. This is critical that people make sure that their taxes are properly handled. You need to have accountants who are going to help you with this. I always tell people I'm not an accountant, but I always feel that because I've been doing this for so long, I can tell you the questions that you should be asking your accountant in order to make sure that you're kosher, right? You got to be 100% kosher with your taxation. Okay, back to the businesses. So now you're a business owner, you hire a few people. What do you need to know about paying them? It's not just from here to there that you pay them. You have to pay your employees by the 9th of the month. So regardless of your cash flow, you got to make sure you have enough money in the corporation in order to pay these people, or else you're going to be facing all sorts of problems, let alone the fact that you'll be facing employees who are very, very unhappy with you. Next, let's be a smart purchaser. You're going to have to buy things for your company. You're going to have to invest in, I don't know, real estate, but certainly property. Maybe you need to buy a chair. Maybe you need to buy inventory, whatever it is that you have to buy. But you got to be careful because there's a term in Hebrew. We have a friar, which I guess in English, the best translation is a sucker, right? You don't want to be the guy who's the sucker who's way overpaying for something. I'm not saying you shouldn't pay to get service. That's always important. But, shop around, compare prices. And for things you're going to buy, for things that are little, don't worry about it. You can follow the 20-20 rule. What's the 20-20 rule? The 20-20 rule says that if you could buy it again in under 20 minutes, or it's a purchase that's under $20, don't spend much time thinking about it. But when you're talking about rent or a purchase that you'll be doing all the time, a regular monthly payment, don't be a friar. Take the time to investigate how much you're spending and whether there are other people from whom you can buy it who might give you a better price, as well as the good service. Don't just be shopping for price, look for price and service. And finally, I think you have to do a number of things to help you plan for success in business. Number one, start with the goals. What's the vision of your company? Who are you trying to help? Now, I spent years thinking about this. I spent years saying to myself, okay, I'm a boutique private brokerage firm based in Israel that helps people in Israel manage their US portfolios. What's the vision? What I discovered in the beginning, frankly, it was a little bit difficult to understand it because I thought I'm helping people with their investments. But really what I understood was that I was helping people to lower the stress that they have in handling their portfolios, because not everyone is an investment expert. People want to have someone who can hold their hand, set up the accounts for them, make sure that they're making the right choices in their investments. I felt that I was lowering the stress for people so that they could live comfortably and happily in Israel. And that's really what I saw the vision of the company as. What's the vision of your company? And how are you going to measure success? To figure out the vision, figure out your goals, figure out what measurements you're going to use to make sure that you're actually doing the right thing. Now break that down into shorter term, into a smaller perspective. Give yourself a goal for the next year, the next 90 days, the next week, and ultimately today. And what's the goal for the day? What's the number one goal for the day? I don't know what your number one goal for the day is, but think about it first thing and do it first. All the time. We all know what it's like to have an inbox that fills up with emails before we can empty it out. I'm proud to say that I'm at inbox zero. That's the space that I like to be. But there are tons of people out there who keep trying to send me new emails. But that's not the most important thing for me to do. My job is not to work on someone else's schedule when he's sending me an email because he wants me to deal with something. My job is to figure out the number one thing that I need to do today and do it first. Emails I can deal with later. You need to do the same thing. Don't let yourself get pulled in so many directions. Oh, I'm going to say yes to do my email. I'm going to say yes to my assistant who needs help with her computer. I'm going to say yes to this guy. All of a sudden, every time you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And if that no is the number one thing that you should be doing today, the one thing, then what did you really accomplish today? You ever find that you finish the day and you feel like, well, I didn't really do anything that was that useful, but I have important things to do, so I must be very important. I own a business. If you don't do those important things, you're not going to have a business much longer. Finally, I think you need to always look at the overall structure of your company. Now, when I always look at things from an investment advisor standpoint, I tell people you need to structure your portfolio. If you're married, you have a joint account. Do you also have individual accounts? Do you have IRA accounts? Do you have other pension accounts? Each of these things are part of the structure. So in the same way, you've got to think about your business. Should I incorporate? What kind of incorporation? What sort of pension plans do I have to set up by law? What sort of systems do I need to have in place in order to be kosher, right? These are all the questions you have to ask. The bottom line is that running a business in many ways is like running your own personal finance. You don't have to be an expert in it. You don't have to know everything about running a business, just like you don't need to know everything about running your portfolio. That's why there are guys like me. But if you need help running your business, make sure that you speak with your accountant, speak with your lawyer. They're the first people to get you started to make sure that everything is going okay. Then you can work with business coaches. You can, if you have a good relationship with your financial advisor, you might talk to him just about some of the big picture stuff. These are the important steps, the 5 tips that every business person should be focusing on all the time to make sure that they're successful. All right, that's it for today's Goldstein on Gelt Show. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions or comments about your own investment portfolio, as always, feel free to get in touch with me. If you liked this episode, which was a little bit off what we're talking about normally, please let me know. And in fact, if you didn't like it, please let me know. You can always get in touch with me at goldsteinongelt.com and click on the Contact Us button. You're listening to the show for Americans living in Israel who want to handle their U.S. portfolios from here. I'm Doug Goldstein. See you next time.